Hello all and welcome to our daily news show, The Big Story, where we talk about the hottest topics of today right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Kimberly Jia, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom, and we are streaming on YouTube and Facebook, so be sure to leave us a like, comment and share it with your friends, as well as hit the notification bell so you'll be told whenever we go live. I'll be joined today by a couple of our newsroom colleagues and a guest to talk about the hottest topics that have got you talking today. Numerous people around the world, including in Singapore, claim they have been eavesdropped on via their own phones. People have shared their stories with ST about how things they mention in daily conversations seem to come up in ads, even if they don't Google it. So with me to discuss this today is tech editor Irene. So, what do you think is going on behind the scenes here? Like, what's happening?
It's a mystery to all of us. We know that big tech firms scan our email, search terms, and our surfing behavior to serve us targeted ads.
Yeah.
But eavesdropping is taking this to a new level. It's spooky.
Yeah, it's weird.
And over a dozen people actually told us that they will serve specific ads. And these are very, 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 very niche topics, such as painting services for deceased pets and Singapore PR applications. After a conversation with their friends about it, and although they've never searched for these things on their phone, by typing it in. And we know that big tech firms also have time to time again denied that they use the microphone functions to spy on us or to listen in to serve us ads. Facebook said it, Apple said it, Google said it. So we don't know what is really happening.
But these searches are way too niche for them to be like generalized demographic information for them to know.
Yeah, which is why everybody is becoming a bit more suspicious.
Yeah, so should we be scared? Do you think we should be fearful about this? Is there any way we can prevent this from happening?
Although there's no hard evidence to prove that big tech firms are eavesdropping on us, we can take the usual precautions, like not just from big tech firms, but against from any other company that asks for, they have no reason to ask for access to our phone's microphone, picture gallery, contact list, or camera functions. For example, a calendar app has no reason, asking for permission to access our contact list or camera function, for instance. So all you need to do is simply review the permissions you've granted to apps by going to the settings in your phone, and deny any unreasonable request. Nothing is really foolproof, unfortunately, unless you have no digital trail. I mean, it's very hard these days not to, to be digital.
So you just be cautious, I would say. And this phone listening thing is very shocking, right? Because phones are listening to your conversations. But at the same time, smart home devices are becoming more and more popular, and their job is actually to listen to you. So are we afraid of that? At some point, I think there was this news that the devices were laughing and being defiant. So should we be afraid of them?
It's a grey area, and it's an area that users should sit up. It's users beware, I guess. They belong to smart home devices like Amazon Echo or Google Home, belong to this emerging unregulated space called the Internet of Things. It's unregulated, it's free for all, and it's of concern to a lot of people, and something that we should all be wary of, and unless it's necessary, don't install it at home. But if you do, you make an educated decision to install it. Users should not blame others for being ignorant of some of these issues, actually.
Right. Let me just clarify, the Internet of Things that we're referring to is the connection of your everyday objects, like a fridge or an aircon, to the Internet. So they can send and receive data without human interaction with it, which is why it's, as you said, unregulated. You can't really regulate these kinds of things. So what about you personally? What do you think of this whole phone listening thing? When my colleague was doing the story, and during the process, and after we've done all that, we actually went, a few of us, we went to settings and actually make a conscious effort to delete, and deny apps of access to some of these microphone functions. And then after that, we realized that, hey, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, because they have no access to these things. But at the end of the day, you have to decide what kind of risk you want to take. For example, for me at home, I need surveillance cams. It's a security procedure.
it's a necessary function.
Right.
But I don't have Echo or Home or Google Home in my house,
Right.
because I don't think it's necessary. And seriously, I mean, it's a risk that you take when you install these things. So you just have to be more careful.
Right. So in conclusion, we would say do your research and be careful. So thank you for sharing your thoughts, Irene.
No worries.
So on to the biggest election in the world. The 2019 India general election has been running since April, and this year there have been 900 million eligible voters. And after a long and tumultuous campaign, it is coming to a close today, and they are counting the votes as we speak. We have with us here today Deputy Foreign Editor, Bhagya, to discuss the election. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so with moments to go, literally moments to go before the results are out, polls are showing this possible landslide victory for Modi. So is this expected?
Actually, it's more than moments.
Okay.
Yeah, so part of this result, and that's why it's so controversial, is that a certain percentage of votes are going to be tallied with the paper trail that they've generated. So what that means is it adds on maybe about 4 to 5 hours until after the electronic vote is counted.
Right.
So first of all, even the electronic counting is not done yet. That's underway. And then after that, you add on more for the paper tallying, which is basically a measure against fraud.
Right. So the paper tallying system that you're referring to is the fact that they have signed up many of the voters to have literal paper.
So each time the voter presses the, to give his vote, a paper trail, a paper slip is generated. Now that goes into a box, and certain number of those boxes are going to be opened, and they will verify whether the number that the EVM, the electronic voting machine, throws up is the same as what the paper votes show.
I see.
So that's what is adding this extra time element.
I see.
But I think by now the results are sort of fairly well etched out. So you do have BJP in a very commanding position. On their own, they can form the government.
Right.
So that would be out of 542 seats for which the election was held in Indian Parliament. You needed 272 votes to be, clinching a majority.
Right.
And in this case, BJP by itself is nearly 300 seats.
Okay.
So given that they have the majority on their own, with their allies, that tally is going to go up to maybe 350.
I see.
So you have a government, very comfortable.
Basically.
Exactly. Congress, not so well. So the last time in 2014, they had 44 seats. This time, they are set to be leading in about 50 or so seats.
Okay.
And when you look at the alliance that the Congress is part of, then you take that to about 89, 90 seats. It's still short of 100. So at this point,
it's anyone's game.
Well, it's very clear BJP is
Okay.
coming back, and it's a pretty historic win for Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
I see. So, sorry. So, what reactions do you think, if let's say Modi's party does win, what reactions do you think the crowd is going to give?
Well, I think the crowd is pretty wild. The BJP supporters, I think you can see them gathering in places, you can see the tweets go out. So everybody is basically wild on that side. And I think equally there is a sense of some dejection within the opposition. Not all of them are taking the results as the process is having done yet. Some of them might choose to contest the results, so that could happen as well. But I think some of them have already started congratulating the Prime Minister for having done well, some of the opposition leaders. So I think they probably are now waiting for the next election.
Right. So it seems like they believe the tide is going to turn in
Looks
Modi's
like it.
Right. So because this campaign was a little bit fraught with tension, because
certainly was.
a lot of spats between Modi and Gandhi, which is the opposition side. So if Modi does win, and with the political climate currently as it is in Southeast Asia, do you think, should we be worried about any tensions, political instability?
Well, yes, it was a very negative campaign. So many people have noted that, and there was name calling and all that. Tensions were generated because of it. But whether it's going to translate into the kind of instability, for instance, or the tensions you saw in Jakarta just yesterday or the day before, it does look unlikely at this point. I mean, if the verdict had been not so clear, if it was very close or contested, then in that case, yes. But if it is a clear majority in favor of Modi, as it seems to be, then I think those prospects would have receded. That said, perhaps there could be some tensions in certain parts. After all, even during the campaign, it was pretty tense in some parts of the country. So I think some of that could be resurrected, and hopefully measures are in place, that it doesn't go beyond, people feeling unhappy. And
I see. So if Modi does continue his sort of reign, so to speak, what do you think the changes will be in society? Will there be any major changes?
Well, at this point, there is some sort of apprehension in the minds of minorities.
Okay.
So now the BJP is, as you know, a nationalist party and with a very large Hindu voter base. So given that situation, and given the fact that India does have millions of people, say, one of the largest Muslim populations in the world. So given that, there is some concern on that aspect. And I think even in Mr. Modi's first term, there have been well-documented incidents which caused concerns. There were instances of lawlessness. So that, I think, at the moment is the biggest area of concern. When it comes to other things, for instance, the economy, if you say believe in the stock markets, then I think the Bombay Stock Exchange hit, I think, 40,000 today, which is an all-time record. Right. The National Stock Exchange also won very high points. So the economy-wise, perhaps there isn't that much concern. On foreign policy front, I think this government can be expected to continue on the path it is now. They're trying to cultivate good relations with both the US and China, which is in some ways new for India. This was Modi's initiative, and it seems to be going down well. Okay.
Well, thank you for sharing your insights with us, Bhagya. So, in this week's It Changed My Life column, we followed the story of Miss Angie Chew, who worked through her mental health struggles by practicing mindfulness. To get a better understanding of what Angie has been through, here's a short clip of her story in video.
Through mindfulness, I had the awareness of what were the self-defeating thoughts as well as the disempowering thoughts that was causing me to sink into a place that was very dark and very deep. And I was then able to manage my thoughts and understood the emotions that were associated with those thoughts. So once I was able to switch out of the thoughts, then I was able to take myself out of depression.
For the full video, please head on to www.straitstimes.com/videos. And with me today, I have Kim Ho, the writer of It Changed My Life, and also Angie herself, here to talk about her story. So Angie, in the video, you talked a little bit about mindfulness. So could you tell us a little bit more about what it is and how it works?
So mindfulness is about being present. It's having the awareness of what we're saying when we're saying it, what we're doing when we're doing it. Because a lot of times you find people saying that, oh, I wish I didn't say that. Or I wish I've said something else. Or when they're listening to someone speaking, they're thinking about something in their mind or having their own commentary and judging the whole situation. So mindfulness is about being present in a non-judgmental way.
I see. So Kim Ho, how did you find talking to Angie and listening to her story?
I think maybe I should preface this a little bit. I mean, I actually got to know Angie like more than a decade ago.
Oh, wow.
But at that point in time, your life was pretty okay, right? I mean, so I think recently, she called me up, and I mean, we lost touch for several years. She called me up and said, hey, Kim Ho, I may have an interesting candidate for, your series. And it was actually a government scholar who has decided to give up, high-flying career to go into VWO work. I mean, non-profit work. So we met up for lunch, but in the course of lunch, I discovered a lot had happened in her life since we last met. And I say, hey, I think you should be, the story instead. So yeah, that's how it came to be. And of course, I mean, having known her for a while, it was quite easy talking to her. But I think what was interesting was the fact that so many things had happened which led her to give up $1,000 a day as a computer an IT professional to do what she does now, so which I think is really admirable. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And speaking of what you do today, you did found the BRAHM Center. So could you talk a little bit about that? Why did you found the center?
Yeah, so after my mother passed away in 2011, I thought, could I turn the pain that I went through into something positive and fill a gap that I felt was in the community? Because when I was going through the experience of supporting my mom and not being aware of what dementia was and how to care for her, I realized that there was a big gap. So that's when I decided to launch BRAHM Center as a charity in order to support people to be able to learn and find out how to care for their loved ones who are diagnosed with dementia. Because dementia is not like any other disease where, like in the case of cancer, people become more sympathetic and they are much kinder than with their loved ones who are suffering from dementia. Often there's a lot of frustration and expectations that are unrealistic, that this person still has the memory and even the cognitive functions to be able to have the normal interactions that we've been so used to all these years. And without the memory, that connection, that continuing journey of the relationship changes. And that's something that many loved ones can't cope with. So when we introduce them to also take a mindfulness course as a caregiver, they also learn how to be accepting of their own condition, their own situation, mortality, as well as how to care for their parent who no longer necessarily remembers everything about their lives.
So the center helps to sort of bring mindfulness to more people and tell them how, you know, it could benefit their lives and especially help with dementia patients.
Yes, and because I benefited from it, I thought, you know, really, I think many other people will as well. And this has indeed shown to be the case, because we have now trained more than 10,000 people in mindfulness. And especially after Kim Ho's article, there's been even an increase in the interest that's been coming through. So thank you.
So how would you say the center has grown since you founded it?
When I founded it in 2011, I didn't expect to be working in it. I thought I'm just going to continue my career and do this as a volunteer. But I saw that it was time for me to reconsider my situation after especially meeting the lady who passed away. It's like, what would I really regret not doing if I was told, hey, you only got 2 years left to live? And the answer was very clear. Put my whole life into it. And so that's what I did in 2015 when I crossed over. And so since then, the center has multiplied in programs from perhaps 6 a month to now over 40 a month. And we have seen a large increase in the number of people coming through the center for programs and courses, and also for counseling support. And the number of staff has grown from 6 to now almost 40.
So, and you mentioned that change that you did in 2015. That was not just any change. You were sort of giving up a $20,000 salary to do, you know, take a 60% pay cut and, you know, do charity work. So how did that change? How did your life change?
So it took me over a year to psychologically work this through my mind, that am I really ready for this? Is this really something that I'm going to take a big leap and not look back and have any regrets? So it was over a year to let go of a $20,000 job and go work for less than $10,000. And so when I finally crossed over on the 1st of August, I've not looked back and regretted it. In fact, I think it's the best decision I've made given this point in my life, and to see the effects, the positive effects of how people are benefiting from the courses, the programs, and the support services that we offer.
So you would say no regrets?
Absolutely none.
Kim Ho, you've written a lot of human interest stories and a lot of stories like this. So what's different? What's unique about Angie's case?
Oh, I would like to think that, you know, all the folks I've interviewed are unique in their own way.
Yes, of course.
So it's always my rejoinder to people who say that, you know, Singaporeans are really boring. They are very by the book and blah blah blah. And I found that I've been doing the column for quite a few years now, that if you actually sat down and talk to people and get things out of them, a lot of them have very, very interesting stories to tell. And Angie is no exception. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much to both of you for sharing this inspiring story. And those were the top news for the day. For more news and stories, please do head on to www.straitstimes.com. Once again, this has been Kimberly. Thank you for watching The Big Story, and we'll see you tomorrow.